The research station hung silently in the darkness of space, a small cluster of lights against the endless black. Dr. Elias Mercer adjusted his headset and peered through the observation window at the planet below. It was a strange world, larger than Earth, with swirling green clouds and glinting crystal formations that sparkled even from orbit. He had spent months studying its surface from the station, analyzing the strange life forms that had begun to emerge. Tonight, like most nights, he was alone in the lab. The hum of the station's engines and the soft blinking of control panels were the only companions. His work involved examining alien specimens in containment pods. Each creature was unique, some resembling plants with subtle movement, others more animal-like, with patterns and colors that dazzled the eye. Elias leaned over one of the pods, studying a small, glowing creature. It pulsed gently, almost as if it were breathing light. He tapped a command on his console, and the readings on the scanner began to flow across the screen. Everything was normal, or as normal as studying alien life could ever be. A sudden flicker of movement caught his attention. At first, he thought it was a reflection from the window. Then he saw her. A small figure, not much taller than a human child, stood at the edge of the lab. Her skin glimmered faintly, like a soft sheet of light pressed under her surface. Her eyes were large, glowing with curiosity, and her hair shimmered like strands of silver. Elias froze. The station was supposed to be secure. No one had authorized visitors. At least, no one human, and certainly no alien child. The girl stepped closer, moving with careful grace. She held a small device in her hand that clicked and hummed softly. Elias noticed that she was looking directly at him. Her eyes held a question, one that went beyond words. He swallowed hard and straightened. "Hello, I'm Dr. Elias Mercer," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "Who are you?" The girl tilted her head, a gesture that seemed almost human. She pressed a button on her device. It whirred and emitted a stream of broken sounds that formed words he could barely understand. Then finally a translation appeared on his screen. "Where are you from?" The simplicity of the question surprised him. Of course, she was an alien. How could she understand humans? But something in the way she asked it, the tilt of her head, the light in her eyes, made it clear she was not just asking about a place on a map. She wanted to understand him, his origin, his nature. Elias paused. It had been a long time since someone, or something, had asked him that question. I'm from Earth," he said carefully, watching her face for any reaction. "A planet in the Sol system, home to humans like me." The scanner beside him began to blink erratically. Its usual calm, steady display flickered and hummed. He frowned. That wasn't supposed to happen. He glanced at the device the girl was holding. The readings were climbing, and he realized that her presence, or perhaps her question, was interfering with the technology. "Do you understand?" he asked, feeling a little anxious. The girl's eyes widened slightly, and she nodded slowly. Then she pointed at the scanner, which was now giving off small sparks. Elias rushed over to shut it down before it caused damage. The moment he touched the controls, the scanner let out a loud pop and shut off completely. The girl stepped closer, her small hand hovering over the device. A soft light radiated from her skin, and for a moment, Elias thought she might be trying to fix it. And she did. The scanner flickered back to life, but instead of showing normal readings, it displayed strange, incomprehensible symbols and lines. Elias stared. He had never seen anything like it. It can't read this," he muttered. "It's broken." The girl tilted her head again, almost playfully, and smiled. She wasn't frightened. She seemed fascinated. "Your origin is strange," the scanner translated her words haltingly. "It cannot understand. Elias exhaled slowly. That made sense. Humans were complex, not just biologically, but culturally and emotionally. Technology could measure physical traits, analyze chemical compositions, and even predict patterns in behavior. But the full depth of a human's experience? That was something machines had never been able to grasp. He took a step closer to her. "You want to know about humans, don't you?" he asked. The girl's device clicked. Words appeared. "Yes. Explain. Your story." Elias thought about it. Could he really explain humanity in a way a child could understand? And more importantly, could he explain it to a species that had never met humans before? He decided to start small. "Humans, we survive," he said. "We endure difficulties that might destroy other species. We build, we learn, and we explore. We make mistakes, but we also create beauty. We reach for the stars, not because we must, but because we want to understand them." The girl's eyes glimmered brighter. Her small hand rested on the scanner again. Sparks of light danced from her fingertips, making the symbols on the screen shimmer and shift. The device struggled to translate his words, spitting out more nonsense symbols, then paused. Elias smiled faintly. "I see you're having trouble understanding. It's okay. Most machines do." She laughed, a soft, musical sound that seemed to echo slightly in the lab. For a moment, she looked almost human. Her curiosity was genuine, her fascination obvious. She wasn't afraid of him. She wasn't trying to harm him. She just wanted to know. "Why, humans?" she asked finally, and her words were clearer now, somehow simpler. Elias took a deep breath. That was the question, wasn't it? Why humans? Why had humanity survived, thrived, and reached the stars when countless other species had vanished? Why were humans so stubbornly, brilliantly alive? "Because we never give up," he said softly. "Because we care. Because even when things are hard, we find a reason to keep going. We connect with each other and with the world around us. We make mistakes, yes, but we learn, we create, we endure. That is who we are." The girl watched him silently. She didn't speak, didn't touch the scanner, didn't move. She simply absorbed his words, and for a moment, Elias felt that she truly understood. Then she reached out, touching the scanner lightly again. The symbols on the screen swirled, shifted, and finally stopped. The machine was quiet. It was as if it had given up trying to translate the human spirit, recognizing it as something beyond its capacity. Elias leaned back, feeling both relief and awe. The girl looked at him, her eyes bright with something unspoken. Respect, maybe. Or curiosity. Or admiration. He couldn't tell. "You are different," her device finally translated. Elias chuckled softly. "Yes, we are," he said. "But so are you. That's why we are talking right now." For a long moment, they simply watched each other. Outside the lab, the planet below shimmered under the light of a distant sun. Inside, a human and a young alien girl shared a moment of connection that neither technology nor language could fully explain. Finally, she gestured toward the door, as if inviting him to follow. Elias hesitated, looking back at the glowing specimens and the broken scanner, then at her shining eyes. He felt a strange mixture of fear and excitement. Whatever lay beyond that door, he knew it would change everything. With a deep breath, he stepped forward. "All right," he said. "Let's see what your world has to show me." The girl's smile widened, and her hand glowed brighter, lighting their path. Elias knew that this encounter, simple as it might seem, was the beginning of something extraordinary. Something that would test everything he thought he knew about humans, about aliens, and about the universe itself. And in the silence of space, a new story began, one that no scanner, no machine, could ever fully capture. Elias followed the small alien girl, Leora, down the narrow corridors of the research station. The walls were sleek and metallic, lit with soft blue lights that reflected off the polished floor. Despite the station's familiar hum, Elias felt a thrill of unease. Leora moved with an effortless grace, her glowing skin illuminating the path ahead. Yet there was a sense that she knew far more about this place than he did. "Where are we going?" Elias asked cautiously. His voice echoed slightly in the hallway. Leora didn't answer in words. She tapped her small device and a stream of broken sentences appeared on the screen. "Follow. See. Understand. Human." Elias frowned. He wasn't sure what that meant, but something about her tone suggested excitement rather than danger. He adjusted his jacket, feeling the weight of his scientific tools pressing against him. He was a xenobiologist, trained to observe, measure, and analyze. But this situation was beyond observation. It required trust. As they entered a wider chamber, Elias noticed the scanner he had tried to fix earlier. It still hummed faintly, the symbols on the display flickering like a strange code that refused to be understood. He approached it, tapping the console. "It's still not working properly," he muttered. The machine's lights blinked and sputtered, attempting to process the words he had spoken earlier. Sparks danced across the edges of the panel, and the readout produced nothing but incomprehensible patterns. Leora tilted her head and placed a hand over the scanner. A soft glow radiated from her skin, and the machine blinked violently. Elias instinctively stepped back. The scanner whined and groaned before suddenly letting out a loud pop. The screen went completely dark. Elias cursed softly under his breath. "It's ruined," he said. "Completely fried." Leora looked at him, her glowing eyes curious, almost amused. Then she tapped the scanner gently, and the device blinked back to life. But the readout was even stranger than before. Lines of symbols twisted and turned, forming patterns that Elias had never seen. It wasn't just malfunctioning, it was struggling to represent something it could not comprehend. He stepped closer, fascinated despite himself. "It can't process what I told it," he said. "It's like it's trying to measure something that cannot be measured." Leora smiled faintly, as if confirming his suspicion. She gestured for him to follow, moving toward a large observation deck overlooking the planet below. Elias hesitated, glancing once more at the broken scanner, then followed. The observation deck was massive, with walls of clear material that offered a panoramic view of the planet's surface. Swirling green clouds stretched across the sky, and crystalline formations glimmered like jewels scattered across a giant desert. It was breathtaking. Elias took a deep breath, momentarily forgetting the scanner. Leora stepped closer to the edge, her glowing hand extended toward the planet. Elias noticed that the crystals on the surface seemed to respond, shimmering more brightly as though acknowledging her presence. She tapped her device again, and words appeared. "See, understand, human spirit." Elias frowned. "The human spirit?" he repeated. He looked down at the planet, trying to interpret what she meant. "Are you saying my species has a spirit? Something your machines cannot measure?" Leora nodded slowly, her eyes fixed on him. Her skin pulsed gently, casting soft reflections across the walls of the deck. Elias felt a strange warmth, as though her presence was reaching beyond words, beyond technology, into something deeper. He stepped closer. "You want to know why humans survive, why we endure?" Her eyes glimmered. "Explain human essence." Elias sighed. This was more than a simple translation issue. The scanner could not handle it, and perhaps no machine could. He looked at the girl, curious, intelligent, unafraid, and felt a sense of responsibility. He would tell her. He would try to convey what humans were, not just physically or scientifically, but in spirit. Humans are survivors, he began slowly. We face challenges that might destroy other species. We endure hardships, but we continue. We adapt, learn, and grow. We make mistakes, but we find ways to correct them. We create, not just for survival, but to understand, to connect, and to imagine. Leora's device flickered wildly, as if overwhelmed. Sparks of light danced across her fingers as she held it. The symbols on the scanner became more erratic, twisting into strange shapes, some even appearing three-dimensional for a brief moment. Elias stepped back, awestruck. "See? I told you. It cannot comprehend fully," he said softly. "It's trying, but some things cannot be measured." Leora looked at him, her eyes reflecting the swirling patterns on the scanner. She reached out, placing a hand gently on his arm. A soft warmth radiated from her, and for a moment, Elias felt as if he could glimpse her thoughts, not through words, but through emotion, intention, and understanding. She tapped the device again. Words appeared. Human, resilience, creativity, connection, courage. Elias nodded. Yes, exactly. That is what makes humans unique. We endure, we create, and we connect. And somehow, we find reasons to hope, even when everything seems impossible. For the first time, he noticed how quiet she had become, her small body glowing softly in the dim light of the observation deck. Her eyes were wide, reflecting something that reminded him of awe, but it was deeper, more profound. She was not just understanding the words. She was feeling their meaning. He took a deep breath and continued. We are not perfect. We fail, we stumble, we fall. But every time we rise again, we become stronger, wiser. That is why humans endure. That is why we are here, in the stars, looking at your world, trying to understand it. The scanner flickered again, lights racing across the screen like electricity. Symbols twisted and reformed, then slowly stopped. Elias leaned forward, peering at the display. The machine was silent now, almost as if it had accepted defeat. Leora reached out and pressed her hand to the scanner. A soft glow spread across its surface, illuminating both of them. Then she looked at him, her eyes reflecting the shimmer of the planet below. Different, human, essence. Cannot translate, the device stammered. Elias chuckled softly. Yes, I suppose it cannot. It is beyond measurement, beyond calculation. Machines can record facts, but they cannot feel courage or wonder. They cannot measure creativity, empathy, or hope. They cannot understand the human spirit. The girl studied him for a long moment. Then she stepped closer, taking his hand in hers. Her skin was warm, surprisingly so, and it pulsed gently with soft light. Elias felt a strange sense of calm wash over him. You are human and remarkable, the device finally translated. Elias smiled, feeling a strange pride. Thank you, Leora. You are remarkable too. I have never met anyone like you. Leora's small smile widened. Then she turned and gestured toward a narrow door at the far end of the observation deck. Elias glanced at it. Beyond that door, he could see faint light spilling into the hallway, the faint outlines of shapes moving in the distance. You want me to follow? He asked, cautiously. The girl tapped her device. Yes. Learn. Understand. See. World. Elias hesitated, then nodded. All right. Lead the way. They walked down the hallway together, the hum of the station a constant companion. The scanner, now silent, seemed almost alive in its quiet defeat. Elias couldn't help but glance back at it. That machine had failed because it tried to measure something beyond its design, something that defined humanity. As they moved through the station, Leora began to communicate more directly. Her gestures were fluid, her device translating in bursts of words that made Elias think not of sentences, but of stories. She conveyed wonder, curiosity, and excitement. Every step they took seemed to pulse with anticipation, as if the station itself were alive to their journey. Finally, they reached a hatch that opened onto a narrow observation platform overlooking a canyon carved into the planet's surface. Crystals jutted from the ground like towers of light, and the wind, soft and humming with energy, rippled across the terrain. Leora stepped forward, glowing brightly in the dim light, and gestured for Elias to come closer. She tapped her device again. Understand? Humans. Endure. Create. Connect. Elias looked at the canyon below and then back at the girl. The words struck him deeply. This was more than curiosity. Leora was not just studying humans. She was beginning to understand their essence. He took a deep breath. "Then I will show you," he said. "I will show you what humans can do. But you have to trust me." She nodded, her small hand glowing as she reached for his. Together they stepped toward the edge of the platform, ready to begin a journey that neither machine nor language could fully capture. And in that moment, Elias realized that this encounter, the question, the scanner, the alien girl, was not just a study of life. It was a revelation. Humanity, in all its resilience and creativity, had found a witness in the cosmos. And that witness, Leora, would see more than the machines ever could. The hatch closed behind them with a soft hiss, sealing Elias and Leora into a corridor of quiet anticipation. The air smelled faintly metallic, but with an underlying freshness he couldn't place. Leora's soft glow illuminated the walls, making their shadows stretch and bend strangely as they moved forward. Elias kept pace with her, trying to keep his curiosity from overtaking his caution. Despite the alien nature of this planet, there was something calming about Leora's presence. She moved with ease, confident in her world, yet open and inviting him to follow. They reached the edge of the station's landing bay, where a transparent barrier allowed a view of the planet below. The canyon stretched for miles, jagged crystal spires rising from the ground like frozen lightning. Rivers of luminescent liquid flowed between them, shimmering softly as if carrying their own light. The sight took Elias's breath away. "This is incredible," he whispered. "I've studied exoplanets from orbit, but nothing prepared me for this." Leora turned to him, her eyes sparkling, and tapped her device. "See, feel, understand. Human." Elias nodded slowly. She wanted him to experience, not just observe. Humans had always relied on their senses, their instincts, their creativity to understand the world, and she was inviting him to do the same, but in her world. She guided him down a narrow path leading to the canyon floor. The ground beneath their feet was smooth but alive with energy. Elias could feel faint vibrations as he stepped, like the planet itself was breathing. Small creatures scuttled through the glowing flora, their translucent bodies leaving trails of light. Elias crouched to examine one, noting the intricate patterns on its skin. "Remarkable," he murmured. "Life here has adapted in ways humans have never seen. Every organism interacts with energy in unique ways, almost as if the planet itself is part of them." Leora watched him carefully. She tapped her device. "Humans, observe, wonder, adapt." Elias smiled. That was true. Humans had survived by observing, understanding, and adapting to their environment. Even when the odds were stacked against them, they found ways to thrive. As they continued, Leora led him to a cluster of crystalline formations that rose higher than any human-made building. The crystals hummed faintly, resonating with the energy of the planet. When Leora touched one, it pulsed brighter, sending ripples through the cluster. Elias realized it was a form of communication, a way for the planet and its life forms to interact. You understand energy, he said, fascinated. Humans have only begun to grasp such connections. But this is beyond anything we know. Leora's glow pulsed softly, almost like a laugh. She tapped her device again. Energy, life, resilience, creation. Elias realized she was drawing a connection between the planet's energy and the qualities he had described in humans. Resilience, creation, endurance. She was beginning to see humanity not just as a species, but as a force, a spark in the vast darkness of the universe. They reached a plateau overlooking a river of liquid crystal. Its surface shimmered like mercury, reflecting the jagged mountains above. Leora gestured for him to sit and observe. Elias complied, watching as small creatures darted across the surface, leaving trails of color that seemed to tell a story in motion. He spoke softly, almost to himself. Humans are like this river. We carve our paths, leave marks, and create beauty even in places others may overlook. Even when faced with danger, we keep flowing, keep moving forward. Leora's device translated, flow, persist, create, endure, human spirit. Elias nodded, encouraged. He had a feeling she truly understood him now, not just his words, but the essence behind them. She was beginning to grasp that humans were more than biology. They were persistence, imagination, and connection. As the sun of the alien planet dipped closer to the horizon, the crystals around them cast long shadows that danced across the canyon floor. Leora stepped closer to Elias, her small hand pointing toward a distant ridge where light seemed to shimmer differently. Curious, Elias followed. The ridge led to a narrow opening between towering crystals. Inside, the air was cooler, and the faint hum of energy was stronger, almost musical. Leora gestured for him to enter. They stepped through together, emerging into a cavern filled with floating crystal shards. They levitated gently, moving as if guided by an invisible current. Elias marveled at the sight. The cavern was alive, a symphony of light and energy that defied gravity. They're communicating, he whispered. Not with sound, not with words, but with energy. It's beautiful. Leora nodded and tapped her device. Life, energy, connection, humans, potential? Elias smiled. You're right. Humans have potential too. We explore, create, endure. We connect with each other and sometimes even with worlds we've never seen before. That is what makes us extraordinary. They walked deeper into the cavern. Elias noticed small symbols etched into the crystal walls, glowing faintly. He reached out to touch one, and it pulsed warmly under his fingers. Leora tapped her device. Understanding, learning, humans, spirit. Elias realized something profound. Machines could measure data, but life, real life, was more than data. It was resilience, creativity, courage, and connection. And Leora, this small alien girl, was beginning to see it too. Suddenly, the cavern opened into a vast chamber where the crystals formed a natural amphitheater. In the center, a pool of liquid crystal reflected their images perfectly. Leora stepped to the edge, gesturing for Elias to do the same. He knelt and touched the liquid. It rippled with energy, responding to him as if recognizing his presence. His reflection shimmered, then changed subtly, showing not just his face but something deeper: determination, curiosity, and courage. You see, he whispered to Leora, humans. We endure, we create, and we connect. That is who we are. Not just our bodies, but our spirit, our choices, our actions. That is our essence. Leora watched, her eyes wide with wonder. She tapped her device. Human, essence, beautiful. I cannot measure. Elias smiled faintly. No machine can, but perhaps One day, a being like you can understand it fully." She stepped closer, her small hand glowing softly. Elias realized that this journey was not just about showing her the planet. It was about revealing humanity itself. For hours, they explored the cavern together. Leora led him to floating crystals, shimmering pools, and strange formations that resonated with energy. Each time he spoke of humans, how they survived, adapted, and created, the crystals pulsed, reflecting their words in light and motion. Elias began to see a pattern. Leora was not just learning facts, she was learning philosophy, ethics, and the essence of resilience. She was seeing humans as more than creatures. She was seeing them as a force of nature, capable of shaping worlds and inspiring awe. As night fell on the alien planet, the crystals glowed brighter, forming constellations within the cavern. Elias felt a deep sense of connection, not just with Leora, but with humanity itself. For all their flaws and failures, humans had a spark that no machine, no scanner, no alien device could ever truly measure. Leora tapped her device one final time that night. The words appeared slowly. Humans, endure, create, connect, inspire. Elias nodded, his heart full. Yes, that's us. That is who we are. The small alien girl smiled, her glow brightening. Elias realized that she had understood something profound. Humanity was not just a species. It was a story, a force, a light in the darkness. And she, in her own way, would carry that story forward. As they left the cavern and began their climb back toward the station, Elias felt a sense of wonder he hadn't felt in years. This journey, guided by a small, curious alien, had shown him not just the planet's mysteries, but the beauty of human potential. And somewhere deep in the stars, he knew that humanity's story had just begun to be understood in ways that no scanner, no machine, and perhaps no other species could ever fully grasp. The canyon's wind whispered softly as Elias and Leora continued their journey across the alien planet. The strange crystals glimmered under the twin suns, casting prismatic lights across the rugged landscape. Elias marveled at the sheer beauty, but he knew their journey was not just about observation. It was about revealing the essence of humanity to Leora. She walked ahead, her small hand glowing faintly to illuminate the path. Her device pulsed softly as she communicated, translating her thoughts into words on the screen. Show, humans, endure, create, connect. Elias nodded. This was the heart of the matter. Humans were more than just survivors. They were creators, thinkers, explorers, and connectors. He needed to show her why humans were extraordinary, not through theory, but through example, stories, and experience. They reached a plateau overlooking a vast valley where alien flora grew in impossible shapes, twisting toward the sky like living sculptures. Elias knelt and pointed to the valley below. "Look at this world," he said. "Imagine a species trying to survive here. Many would fail, unable to adapt. Humans, we face challenges like this and more, and somehow we endure." Leora's eyes shimmered brighter. She tapped her device. Endure. Survive. Humans. Clever. Elias smiled. Cleverness, adaptability, resilience, these were traits humans had honed over millennia. But it's not just survival, he continued. We create. We build. We imagine. We learn from our mistakes. That is what sets us apart. We do not only react to the world, we shape it. He paused, pointing toward a distant ridge where the sunlight reflected off natural formations. Humans built civilizations in deserts, jungles, frozen tundras. We crossed oceans, climbed mountains, and reached the stars. Not because it was easy, but because we dared to try. Because we believed in something greater than ourselves. Leora's small hand glowed, her excitement evident. Her device translated, try, believe, human, daring, greatness. Elias crouched to examine a small cluster of alien creatures nearby, glowing softly as they moved in harmony. Humans are like these creatures, he explained. We work together. We learn from one another. We form bonds and communities that help us survive and flourish. Our greatest strength is not just our intelligence, it's our connection to each other. The girl watched intently, absorbing his words. Elias realized that she was beginning to understand the deeper nature of humanity. Not just the physical or technological achievements, but the spirit, the choices, and the connections that defined them. As they moved further, Elias began telling her stories, true stories of human history. He spoke of early explorers crossing unknown lands, of scientists who faced failure after failure to discover truths about the universe, of ordinary people who risked everything to help others. Each story was simple, but filled with courage, creativity, and hope. Leora's device struggled to keep up, flickering with symbols that twisted and swirled, unable to fully translate the depth of what he was saying. Yet she didn't seem frustrated. On the contrary, her eyes glowed brighter with each story, reflecting awe and understanding. Elias pointed toward a narrow canyon where streams of energy pulsed across the ground. Humans endure hardship, yes, but we also dream. We imagine worlds beyond our reach, and then we reach for them. That is our essence. Resilience guided by hope, intelligence shaped by curiosity, courage that defies fear. The alien girl stepped closer, her hand hovering near his arm, glowing faintly. Her device clicked rapidly, trying to capture the meaning of his words. Finally, it displayed a single clear phrase. Human, spirit, cannot measure. Elias chuckled softly. Exactly. Machines can never understand us fully. They can record our actions, measure our physiology, analyze our history. But they cannot capture the human spirit, the drive to endure, to create, to connect, to hope. He gestured toward the horizon where the twin suns began to set, casting long, colorful shadows across the valley. This is why humans reach for the stars, not for conquest, not for power, but for understanding. We explore to know, to learn, and to connect with the universe around us. Leora's glow intensified. She moved toward a large crystal formation nearby, touching it gently. The crystal responded with a cascade of light, illuminating the entire plateau in a dazzling display. Elias realized that this world, this planet, was reacting to the energy and understanding Leora carried. And through her, humanity's essence was being reflected back. They settled on a ledge overlooking a glowing forest of crystal trees. Elias sat, watching as the shimmering lights shifted and danced. Leora, he said, there is one more thing you must understand about humans. We are flawed, yes. We make mistakes. We hurt one another sometimes. But even in our failures, we learn. Even in our pain, we grow. That is what makes us extraordinary. The girl's device translated slowly. Flawed. Learn. Grow. Humans. Extraordinary. Elias nodded. Our flaws do not define us. They teach us. They challenge us. They show us the importance of connection, creativity, and courage. That is why humans endure where others might fail. That is why we continue to explore, to create, to inspire. Leora watched him silently for a long moment. Then she gestured toward a distant canyon where the light of the setting suns shimmered across the landscape. Her device displayed a single word: legendary. Elias felt a smile tug at his lips. Yes, he said softly. Perhaps one day humans will be remembered not just as a species, but as a force for wonder in the universe. That is the story of humanity. As the twin suns dipped below the horizon, Elias realized something profound. Leora was not just learning about humans. She was beginning to feel what it meant to be human. Her species had never encountered a being capable of such resilience, creativity, and connection. And through her, humanity's story was being seen in a new light. The valley below shimmered with bioluminescent colors as the night fell. Elias and Leora remained on the plateau, observing the interplay of light and life. The alien creatures moved in harmony, responding to the planet's energy. And in that moment, Elias understood that humans, too, were part of a larger pattern, one that connected life, energy, and spirit across the universe. He turned to Leora. "Do you see it now?" he asked. "The essence of humanity?" She nodded, her glow brightening. Her device displayed the words, "Humans, endure, create, connect, inspire." Elias felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This was more than a teaching moment. It was a revelation. Humanity, in all its complexity, had been revealed not just to a machine, but to a sentient being capable of understanding its spirit. Leora stepped closer, touching the edge of the crystal plateau. The light pulsed with energy, almost as if it were celebrating the understanding between them. Elias realized that this moment, this connection, was the true purpose of his journey. He had shown humanity's essence to a new world, and in doing so, had reflected on the qualities that made his own species remarkable. The night deepened, and the canyon below glowed with soft, shifting light. Elias and Leora sat side by side, watching the display. Words were no longer necessary. The energy of the planet, the glow of the crystals, and the presence of Leora conveyed understanding far beyond language. Elias thought of Earth, of human civilization, of the countless individuals who had struggled, created, and endured. He realized that humans were not defined by their technology, their weapons, or their power. They were defined by their spirit, that indomitable spark of courage, creativity, and connection that allowed them to thrive, even in the harshest conditions. Leora tapped her device one final time that night. The words appeared slowly, almost reverently. "Human, spirit, luminous, cannot measure." Elias smiled, feeling a warmth in his chest. "Yes," he whispered, "that is us. That is who we are." As they prepared to leave the plateau and return to the station, Elias knew that Leora had witnessed something extraordinary. She had seen humans not just as creatures of biology, but as beings of spirit, resilience, and wonder. And through her understanding, humanity had been revealed in a way no machine, no scanner, and perhaps no other species could ever fully comprehend. And somewhere in the cosmos, a new story was beginning. A story of humanity, seen through the eyes of an alien. A story that would ripple across worlds, inspiring curiosity, admiration, and awe for generations to come. Part 5. The Breakthrough. The twin suns had long disappeared beyond the horizon, leaving the alien canyon bathed in the soft glow of bioluminescent crystals. Elias and Leora stood at the edge of a crystal lake, its surface shimmering with gentle ripples of light. The energy in the air felt alive, almost sentient, as if the planet itself were aware of their presence. Leora's small hand hovered above the lake, glowing faintly. Her device buzzed softly, translating her thoughts into words on the screen. Human, explain, again, essence. Elias inhaled deeply. This was the moment he had been preparing for. All that they had experienced together, the journey across the canyon, the floating crystal caverns, the shimmering forests, had led to this point. Now he had to explain humanity fully, in a way that even her alien mind could comprehend. He knelt beside the lake and placed his hand gently on the surface. The liquid crystal responded instantly, sending gentle waves of light across the water. Elias looked at Leora, her glowing eyes reflecting the ripples. Leora, he began softly, you have already seen much of what humans are. You've seen how we endure, how we create, how we connect with each other and with the universe around us. But there is something more, something that cannot be fully seen, only felt. Leora leaned closer, her small form vibrating slightly with anticipation. Her device flickered, struggling to keep up with his words. Feel, cannot, measure, human essence. Elias nodded. Exactly. Machines, scanners, and devices can measure our biology, our technology, even our actions. But they cannot measure the spark that drives us, the human spirit. That is our origin, our essence. It is why we explore, why we build, why we dream. It is why we endure against impossible odds. He paused, letting his words sink in. The lake before them reflected not just light, but the emotions carried in his voice: resilience, courage, hope, and wonder. Humans, Elias continued, are remarkable because we do not give up. We are flawed. Yes. We fail. We make mistakes. We suffer, but we rise again. We create beauty even in the harshest conditions. We connect with each other, forming bonds that strengthen us, and we dare to dream beyond the stars, beyond our limits, beyond what anyone thinks is possible. Leora's hand touched the surface of the lake, sending concentric waves across the shimmering water. Her device emitted a series of strange symbols, twisting and turning faster than ever before. Sparks of light shot across the screen. Elias realized with a mixture of awe and concern that the translator, the scanner, was struggling as it never had before. Leora, he said, be careful. That device, it cannot handle the full depth of what I am telling you. But she did not step back. Instead, she smiled softly, her eyes bright with understanding. Her glow intensified, reaching out to Elias as if to connect not just physically, but mentally, emotionally. Elias took a deep breath. I will try one more time. Listen carefully and feel it, not just with your mind, but with your understanding of life itself. He spoke slowly, each word carrying weight and meaning. Humans endure. We create. We connect. We hope. We dream. We imagine worlds beyond our reach, and we reach them. We are curious, brave, and sometimes reckless, but always driven by the desire to understand, to explore, and to connect. That is who we are. That is our origin. That is our essence. The scanner whined violently, the lights flickering uncontrollably, symbols twisted into shapes that no algorithm could decipher. Sparks shot from the edges, and then, with a loud crack, the device emitted a final, blinding pulse of light. The screen went completely black, silent. Elias stepped back, shielding his eyes. The glow of the lake and Leora's light filled the space, making the scanner seem small and insignificant. The girl looked at him with wide eyes, her small form trembling slightly. Her device flickered once more, then displayed a single word repeatedly. Cannot measure human essence. Elias smiled softly. It's broken, he said gently. And rightly so. No machine can contain what we are. No scanner can measure the human spirit. That is something alive, something real, something luminous. Leora stepped closer, placing her hand on his shoulder. A warm light flowed from her, and Elias felt a strange calm wash over him. The alien girl understood, not just his words, but the meaning behind them. She had seen humanity's strength, its creativity, its courage, and its connection to life itself. She tapped her device once, and for the first time, it did not emit sparks or twisted symbols. Instead, it displayed a phrase that seemed to capture everything Elias had said. Human, endure, create, connect, inspire, luminous. Elias felt a swell of pride. That was it. That was humanity in its purest form. flawed, daring, creative, resilient, and inspiring awe even in beings from another world. He looked around at the lake, the glowing crystals, and the canyon bathed in alien light. "This is why humans are remarkable," he said softly. "We are not just another species. We are a force, a story, a spark in the universe. And sometimes, even the universe itself needs witnesses to understand that." Leora nodded, her small form glowing brighter. She touched the lake, sending waves of shimmering light across the surface. The entire canyon seemed to respond, as if acknowledging the truth of his words. Elias realized that this moment, the words he had spoken, the connection he had shared, was more than a revelation for Leora. It was a revelation for him as well. For all the time humans had spent reaching for the stars, for all their failures and triumphs, the essence of their being had finally been understood, even if only by one small, glowing girl on an alien world. He knelt beside the lake, staring at his reflection. It shimmered and shifted with the ripples of energy. He saw not just himself, but humanity reflected in the liquid crystal, a story of resilience, courage, creativity, and connection. "You see now, Leora," he whispered. "Humans are not defined by machines or measurements. We are defined by our choices, our dreams, our spirit. That is our origin. That is our story." Leora placed her hand gently on his, and a pulse of light traveled from her fingertips to his. The lake rippled, the crystals shimmered, and the canyon seemed to glow with recognition. Elias understood that the girl's species would now see humanity differently, not as a simple species among many, but as a being of remarkable potential. Her device flickered one last time and then went completely dark, unable to process further. Elias chuckled softly. "It's fine," he said. "It doesn't need to work anymore. The story has been told. The essence has been seen." The alien girl smiled, her glow slowly dimming to a gentle radiance. She gestured toward the canyon below, where the crystal forests and glowing rivers stretched into the distance. It was a silent message. She understood, and she would remember. Elias stood beside her, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never known. This journey had been more than exploration. It had been a sharing of truth. Humanity, in all its complexity and brilliance, had been revealed to another being, and in doing so, it had been affirmed, celebrated, and honored. He glanced once more at the lake, at the crystals, at the glowing forms of alien life moving in harmony with the planet's energy. "We endure. We create. We connect. We inspire," he whispered to himself. "That is who we are." Leora looked at him, her device finally silent, and then reached out, touching his shoulder in a gesture of understanding. Elias realized that their connection was more than communication. It was recognition. The human spirit had been seen, fully and completely, and it had left a mark that no machine, no scanner, no alien device could erase. As they began the climb back toward the station, Elias felt a quiet awe. Humanity's story was now a part of this world, witnessed by a being who could appreciate its depth, courage, and beauty. The universe had glimpsed the extraordinary nature of humans through the eyes of one small alien girl, and through that witness the story would continue, spreading far beyond the canyon, far beyond the stars. And somewhere deep in the cosmos, the light of human spirit, resilient, creative, courageous, and endlessly curious, shone brighter than ever before.